Welcome to the Content Podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Michelle. How are you doing?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the Content Magazine podcast.
I'm honored to be asked to join. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to make sure that I include people who help out with the magazine rather than just, doing the list of interviewing, more and more people. But, all the people who help out with the magazine have pretty interesting stories and are talented people too, like yourself.
Well, I hope I can live up to that high bar as I sit here in my home office. I hope I can be as much as the other creatives. From the people I've interviewed, there's quite an amazing network of people around Content Magazine.
It is. It's fun, and you are part of that. And so now I imagine you are working from home from your main regular job?
Mm-hmm. Exactly that. Yep.
Yeah. Why don't you kind of say who you are and what you do, and just so that our listeners can kind of get an idea about you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Michelle Runde. I am a contributing writer to Content Magazine. I'm also a policy counselor for product teams at a large tech company in the Bay Area. So that's what I do day to day, but often interspersed with interviewing and writing for Content Magazine. But my day-to-day job is helping guide teams that create new and fun app features, build their products responsibly with privacy and safety in mind.
That's awesome. Now, how did you get into that, specifically the product development and, with the privacy aspect?
Well, it was kind of a bottom-up approach, I'll admit. My first job in the Bay Area was a graveyard shift at a hotel. Oh. So glamorous beginnings. Yeah. But I applied to a contract job, which I got, and it had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. I was just labeling content to help build algorithms, pretty standard job. But I was able to apply to an entry-level contract position within the policy team. And from there, I really just learned on the ground as a contractor, the nature of the role, really coming in blind, so very much on-the-ground experience for about a year, which one would almost, I kind of see it as an extended interview and internship all at the same time.
Yeah.
And then after a year, I was able to convert to being a full-time employee. And it's been really rewarding to see myself grow in the role, frankly.
Yeah. So
it's a very exciting opportunity.
Now, when I hear policy, I think of a lot of legal aspects. Do you deal with that kind of element?
Well, there are a lot of ex-lawyers in the policy world, admittedly, and there is a bit of a public policy aspect to my role. I do have to keep my ear on the ground for rumblings of legislation and whatnot, but my role's a little bit niche, and I work very closely with our engineering teams and project managers who are actually building the really cool stuff you experience, like apps, etc. So instead of thinking more on the public policy side of the house, I get in the weeds on how to build a product safely. When you first download an app, what do you expect as far as who can find you on that app? Ability to report or tell the company when something's going wrong. Those kind of safety features, those are the kind of things I help product teams build in so we can all launch something that can really be successful but keep people safe too.
Yeah, cool. And then what did you actually go to school for then? What was your kind of major and stuff?
I did a double major in history and political science. So with the political science side, it certainly does tie up into policy, although not to say higher education isn't worth it. It absolutely is. I cannot honestly say that I am quoting anything from my history degree in my day-to-day life. So while I am, of course, thrilled that I went to college and will encourage any young person in my life to do so, I cannot honestly say that I am referring to my degree very much in day-to-day work.
Well,
except for writing, perhaps. The writing aspect actually is probably the one I do tap into, both in work for content And my day-to-day job, being able to write at length quickly, is something I did develop in college.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing too. Is like even if you are majoring in history or political science, it may not necessarily that you're using those exact details, but the tools that you learned about probably research and reading and retention and writing and even understanding, like history, like understanding humanity and like the cycles that go on in the world, right? So those probably play into it.
That's exactly right. You should be advocating for liberal arts degrees, Daniel. You
Right,
nailed
exactly.
it perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's what I want. Well, having, a son who's a freshman in college and a daughter who's a junior in high school, the temptation is like not to want to continue with school or see how this isn't, valuable.
Mm-hmm.
You're always surprised what actually helps you in the future.
Completely. What skills you may learn that you end up tapping later, and it may be something ancillary to your actual degree. It could be engaging in drama classes or extracurriculars that you never would have touched on your own time, and that can really spin you off into a different direction than you may have otherwise taken. So college is just a bounty of opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's been kind of challenging for you in the last couple weeks with this latest pandemic and stuff? What's something that's you've kind of been experiencing?
Well, definitely. I would never have considered myself to be a very hyper-social person, a proud introvert, but really actually realizing how much those social interactions did mean to me, certainly at work, just the network of people around you, and maybe you're not exactly going to the bar every night with those people, but they do become your friends and your allies. So
Yeah.
just kind of getting used to seeing everything on a screen. I'm definitely talking more to people I walk by on the street, a lot more nodding and smiling than I think there used to be.
Yeah.
Kind of acknowledging we're all in it together.
Yeah.
I'm a fairly new homeowner, so there's a lot of little tasks to do around the house, and it's been actually a struggle for me I'm tempted to just dive into the house, like I almost am because I'm home, maybe I should be doing all this work around the house, but actually kind of letting go of that kind of micromanagement and not trying to overhaul my life just because things are different. It doesn't mean that I need to behave completely differently or take on a lot of extra work that I wasn't doing before.
Yeah, that is kind of the thing is when you have a home office, all the things that need to happen for the home or, that situation kind of are calling at you while you're doing your work, right? When you're at work, you can be pretty much isolated, I can't do anything else but work. But when you're at home, it's like, oh, I just have to go change the laundry. And then you're like, oh, wait a second. What happened to half my day?
That's exactly it. I never thought I'd be tempted to vacuum at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. But here we are. So, yeah. So these little micro adjustments have been a little bit challenging. But I'd say overall, we've been very fortunate. Certainly that I have a day job continuing to go on. So I'd say overall, adjusting fairly well.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the other reason I wanted to talk to you, too, because you have, you've been involved in content now for few years at least, right?
My goodness. Yes. So I'd say 4 to 5, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of good. So, I would just want to ask you about that. What's kind of been your experience of kind of being out there and talking to people?
About content or just on this have everyone's dealing with work from home right now?
No, actually, yeah, just more about content and actually doing interviews and writing interviews. What's kind of some insights that you have into life and yourself and to the community?
I think people are really just opening up more right now. There's kind of we all have this giant common denominator. It's like how we used to talk about the weather. And anybody can talk about the weather at any moment of the day because it's something we all universally experience. Yeah. We now have another thing we can talk about. So it's kind of an amazing how much it can accelerate conversations and getting to know someone when you already know you had such a relatable common ground experience and in such a short time. All of us who've gone to a grocery store and encountered our favorite item, which is gone, little things like that, or just simply being very lonely, especially for people who may not be living with a partner or with some family or friend and are truly 100% by themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's all the more. I think they're all the more thirsty for engagement right now, which I can completely understand. Even with a partner, I'm definitely finding myself using FaceTime, something I've kind of never been a fan of in the past, but all of a sudden video calls seem a little bit more appealing. I had a video interview actually a while ago, and it was kind of refreshing and a nice change from just doing it over the phone.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, then I was just as far as like having encountered throughout the last 5 years of helping out with content, just interviewing different people. What's some of the things that you've kind of experienced and learned or thought about, or even grown just by out interviewing people and writing the articles?
I guess I have been most amazed at how some of the evolutions I've seen from people, really hearing about their journey from day one to where they are now, and even seeing where they come today. One example is one of my original interviews, in fact, possibly my first article I wrote for content, was a classic loot, and I'm forgetting the name of the person. She ran it, but she was running an entire little thrift shop out of the back of what used to be a food truck.
Yeah.
And not long ago, I was in Japantown in San Jose, and I came across a brick and mortar store for classic loot. And just knowing about seeing that evolution was really amazing to me. Although I wish I could have met the owner again. She wasn't at the store. But I think what I've really come to appreciate is how many people are doing work that doesn't have a big audience, and yet they continue to pursue it. I had a really great interview recently with an artist who lives at home and does not have another main-time job. He's just an artist. He's also not in any way pushing to get his work out into galleries or have shows for it or sell it. He is simply making it for the sake of making his work, and I just kind of found that impressive. That takes a lot of resiliency to keep pushing that, especially if there are people around you who may say this isn't the best investment of your time or whatnot. I've also seen that for artists who, I think it was Makino made gorgeous wooden spoons and utensils, just amazing work, and was very casual about his approach to finding an audience or selling it, even though I'm sure he could have been very stressed about trying to sell his work, but he just wanted to make it for the art itself. And so seeing people who just kind of pursue their own passion, sometimes really driving to get it out there, other people who aren't as concerned about it. It's just kind of amazing to see the different motivations behind the artist, which I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, yeah. What about you? What's kind of your personal passion or mission in life that you're formulating?
Well, I've never really articulated it so clearly, but I guess I'm really pushed for, and although ironically it won't be about humans, is kind of doing the right thing based on humanitarian values. And I'll give an example about what I mean there. One example I have there is I've been vegan for 11 years now, a little over 11 years. And I am personally not a religious person in any fashion. In fact, I would consider myself quite the atheist, but still trying to live by a code of guiding principles and basing my decisions in facts, balancing that when making emotional decisions. And that's kind of led me down the path to actually the role I'm in with policy right now, really trying to just do the right thing on behalf of people who play with our apps and experience our, fun and delightful products. Yeah. Trying to do the right things with my dietary choices and the causes that I support. So that sounds a little more highfalutin than I meant it to seem like. I'm certainly no far from a white knight, but I guess I've sort of just taken that on in different aspects of my life, and it's manifesting in work and in my personal life.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, that's very encouraging, because when you think about, especially working in tech, you can understand and see how easily that technology and those kind of things getting into the wrong hands and people not concerned about people's privacy, how quickly that could spiral into all kinds of horrible things, right?
It really can. And it's also something to keep in mind too is, I'm living and breathing this kind of techie stuff, but the average person isn't. And it's kind of unfair to expect them to. So really trying to say, what would the average, when your grandma logs into, whatever app or something, is she really going to understand what's happening right now? And how can we make it easier for every person across the board who we serve with our products? So just trying to really empathize with other people's situations, put yourself in their shoes, and build that way, as opposed to, the move fast, break things, get things out, growth, these things that really can get wrapped up in Silicon Valley culture.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because, all the laptops have the little camera on the top part, right? And I've seen a bunch of people put like a little postie over it or some kind of thing. And then I never did. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I talked to somebody with tech and they were like, yeah, I kind of do it. So what do you kind of think in knowing, it's probably not even your department or whatever, but do you think that's a good thing? People should cover the little camera, even though they may not have the camera on?
Great question. I have come around, and I am now a coverer. I have a little piece of athletic tape on my laptop I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
And I would say this does not have anything to do with the companies that have built the product.
Sure.
I don't have any concern that Apple is going to look at me
right.
through their camera. I think we are just in a world of, as fast as we build systems to prevent misuse and abuse, people who are bad actors are working just as quickly to how to circumvent them. So I would say there's certainly no harm in it, and just to keep yourself safe in every respect, it certainly can't hurt you to put a little piece of sticky on there, although it's quite the stretch to think that I would ever be targeted for an attack simply because I don't think anything's happening so interesting from my camera that could be used against me. But I guess you never know. But maybe we're all a little bit flattering ourselves to think that we're targets here, but can't hurt.
You could just be the lucky random target person, right?
That's exactly right. So if you're the hit on that roulette wheel, you'll be ready for it too. Although don't forget, covering a camera doesn't help with audio. So I don't know what to help you with on that one.
Yeah. Okay, then we have to rabbit trail a little bit. What do you think about the different companies' listening devices that, you say, hey, somebody, and it does a task for you? What do you think of those? If you're,
I received one for Christmas, and it has never left the box. And to be honest, I would tell most people that if you're concerned about that, you'd actually be surprised at how much control you have for things in settings. I think if you go dig around in the settings on your devices, and sometimes it is a dig, you'd be surprised how many of these companies, Amazons, Facebooks, Googles, do offer controls. They just put the burden on you to go dig it up, such as, I don't want this data to ever be sent back to your headquarters. But I would actually say overall, I do generally have a little more trust in other people and sometimes these companies. So if parts of my voice are being sent back to the mothership to help improve the quality of other future vocal queries, for example, that doesn't concern me so much. The honest reason I didn't pull my device out of the box was I just had no purpose for it. I haven't thought of a use case for it. So it lingers. If you want one, Daniel, I got an Alexa for you. I'll give you a nice discount.
Thanks. We have actually a couple. We have Alexa and Google, and they work for the most part, but sometimes it's frustrating when it's like you have to say which one it is, turn on the kitchen lights, and it doesn't do it. And then you have to say, turn on kitchen light, like that, when I could have easily just reached a half a foot over and flipped a switch,
I run into this with Siri on my iPhone all the time. I have just about thrown my phone through the wall before attempting to vocalize something and get it to transcribe properly when it would require a few keystrokes, and I could have accomplished the same thing. Yeah. So we are masters of our own doom sometimes with our dependence on these technologies.
Yeah. So then, okay, that's cool. So then, what would you say as writing stories and doing interviews, what do you think are some of the key elements that you look for or that you've kind of learned of like making an interesting article or interview?
I think it's really getting the background on what people did before they are doing whatever the task is that I'm interviewing them for, if they start a new business, etc. Even if it doesn't make it into the article, I really love to understand the groundwork, where they came from. And I'm so often surprised at how often people start from a completely unrelated field and then wind up growing crops. I remember interviewing Spade and Plow, and there's been, the two brothers had a variety of backgrounds. So I think really kind of building that and finding some common ground with the person you're interviewing too. As I've mentioned before, how easy that is right now with COVID. I just think that can go a long ways to having a really natural conversation. And maybe I think I found a real success with having pretty organic interviews. I usually have some structured questions, but I very much pivot on just where the conversation is going. I want the person I'm interviewing to talk as much as possible. So I want to let them sort of guide the conversation. And I find what they find interesting, I find interesting. Yeah. So kind of letting them steer what they want to highlight in the conversation can really lead to some interesting nuggets, which really stand out in the articles.
Yeah. That's actually one of the best advice that I ever heard for people who want to do interviews or for writing. Actually, it was Ira Glass who said it from This American Life. Mm-hmm. He said that a good interviewer is a good listener. And I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of tidbit. So
Ira Glass also is the master of writing out the uncomfortable pause. He will just sit and wait for you to be uncomfortable and keep talking, and then some of the best stuff will come out. But I think Ira Glass in particular is a reputation for that. He will wait. He will wait for you.
Yeah. So have you ever done that before? Like you've done an interview and you kind of think maybe there's more there or something, and you just kind of sat back and waited? Or?
Yes, I have. It doesn't work on the phone as well, I'll admit. But certainly in person, it can get a little awkward over the phone.
Yeah.
But I found out in in-person interviews, when I feel like there's just one more layer to be said, or I just don't have anything else to contribute, and I just want to let them, I will pause, and I will sometimes just kind of let them add on to their thought, and you'll really get some interesting insights. Maybe it makes them a little uncomfortable. I don't feel like I do it too often. But I think that it can really work out and kind of just reveal some cool insights. And I really love is when I'm talking with someone and they say something and then they'll pause and like, I never even thought of it like that before until I said it. Kind of see them come to a same revelation in the same moment that I am. That's always kind of fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. What's some things that you're looking forward to kind of going on here, either within the Corona shutdown or what you see kind of post-Corona shutdown? What are you looking forward to?
Well, actually somewhat related to Corona's accelerating this, but I mentioned being a new homeowner. I'm now living in San Jose, where I used to live up a little further up the peninsula in the Bay Area in Mountain View. Not a big difference, but, and so in the Bay Area geography, it's quite the migration. So now that I am forced to do all my exercising outside, running and biking, I'm really starting to explore San Jose kind of more on foot than I used to, and really understanding the city in a kind of a different way than just driving down the freeway, getting from one destination to the next. Yeah. So now that I've been in this Corona situation, been doing that a little bit more, just kind of seeing little delightful things around the corners I may otherwise miss. And it's been something I've been trying to think about doing all year since we moved in here. So just kind of have a great excuse for that. Yeah. And I would have said travel, but that may just have to wait for a little while. But I have racked up quite a bit of paid time off, a little bit of PTO in my other job, which I was looking forward to using, but I'll sit on that until, fingers crossed, not too long.
Yeah. So did you actually have some travel plans that you had to cancel because of the virus?
Oh, thankfully we had not pulled the trigger on any tickets, so we did not have to do the rigmarole with airlines, but we had some pretty firm plans about visiting my in-laws in Kansas. I'm not shedding the biggest tear on that one. I'm just kidding. Totally joking if my partner hears this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there were some opportunities, and then me and my partner were really excited about going to Japan, and we were actually just like 2 days away from pulling the trigger on tickets, and then thankfully hadn't yet. But I still absolutely want to go.
Yeah.
I've only ever been to China once. I would really love to go to Japan, so that would be that is my next big destination.
Yeah, cool. Also, then, what is there anything with this kind of at home more, so you can't go out as much? Anything? What's your binge, your Netflix or something binge that you've been kind of diving into?
Oh, well, because we got a little free access code, I have been watching Picard, the new Star Trek reboot on CBS.
Oh.
Very high quality production, and as a old Star Trek Next Generation fan, quite the fan, I would say, I am very much appreciating the return of Patrick Stewart. So that's been really fun to watch that with my partner. We're both quite the nerds on Star Trek. And I did try to make a promise to myself to read books more, and I've been dismally failing, and I've been quite screen addicted. But we're not done yet, so I'm going to try to carve out an allotted time, like 30 minutes of reading every day, and kind of get back into the rhythm, because it's been a while since I got back into my reading habit.
Yeah. What do you have, something that you kind of have on the docket that you're going to read? Do you have some book idea?
Well, here, nerd on nerd, I will tell you when I've actually been barely started to read it. So people know Lord of the Rings, the series.
Yeah.
The deeper layer behind that is the Silmarillion. It is a J.R.R. Tolkien's history of Middle-earth, the background to the whole existence of Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
It reads, frankly, like an academic textbook in some ways. It is not really a story, as one would think. It's not reading The Hobbit, but I have committed myself to plowing through that. And my partner actually purchased for me a beautiful hardbound edition of it last Christmas, so I'm reading that right now.
So is that kind of like where, does it have like the maps of the lands and stuff like that?
Exactly, the maps, you hear all the time in the movies and everything, the end of the Third Age. So this answers for those who cared about what happened in that First and Second Age, here are your answers. Again, it does not read like a normal story. It's a little dense, but for some reason I'm enjoying it. So kind of nice to dip into that nerddom.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
Yeah. So then in your nerddom, what would you say, is it Star Trek? Is that your top? What's your
I'm
most
very
passionate?
Oh my goodness. Like every millennial, I am a Potterhead. You could get me on Harry Potter any day of the week, and I will enjoy it. I do love all things Lord of the Rings. Certainly Star Trek.
Yeah.
I think those are probably my most mainstream things that I'm pretty well versed in. Probably Harry Potter, though, from cover to cover. Many old series of books, but some of them are a bit older too, so a lot of people may not be as engaged with them today.
Yeah. Okay, so then real quick, Star Wars versus Star Trek. Go.
Man, pulling teeth here. You know what? I'm going to say Star Trek, because I think Disney is not doing a great job with it. So this may have been a harder decision a while back, but today it is Star Trek is better.
Okay. And what makes it better? What's the thing that makes it better?
Way more, and this is very much generation to generation of how they approach the series, but I really do like those kind of moral quandaries they really talk through and wrestle with in Star Trek. I guess maybe that circles back to my larger interest in missions, but seeing people really trying to do the right thing and thinking about it logically and balancing that with the emotional nature of the conversation just gives me a kick.
Yeah, you know what? I never noticed it, but even the original series with, what's his name? William Shatner.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
It was always kind of that, right? It was always kind of a little bit of looking at societal questions. Where Star Wars is just kind of cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians type of thing, right?
It is, and nothing wrong with that. I do love me some Star Wars. You know, those original movies. I probably could recite them from memory. My parents owned them on VHS, so
Yeah.
I had quite a bit of exposure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's more longevity in thinking behind Star Trek. Also, simply just more of it, right? Seasons and seasons of it, so they just had more opportunities.
Yeah. I haven't really seen that many Star Trek, but I would assume compared to Star Wars, the Star Trek acting must be better because Star Wars is really bad, especially the beginning 3 movies. They were really bad movies.
It's definitely a mixed bag. I would tell you for those next generation that Patrick Stewart, who truly is a good actor, pretty much carries the seasons. But so it's a bit of a mix. But I would say net overall, I would probably go with some of the Star Trek acting. But that may be controversial. But so is everything I've just said. So there we go.
Cool. Well, good. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being involved in the magazine for these 100+ years. And I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for taking time and talking to us. Maybe one last word from you of what advice would you give somebody, I don't know, either career or life or something? What advice would you give someone?
I would tell anyone in a career or life that you don't need to worry about what other people's expectations are for what is optimal success. Someone may tell you need to, the upward track means you should be a manager and you should go up to this or this. There's very conventional directions for success. And I'd say you can just stop wherever you're happy. And you may be happy taking on less responsibility and work at certain points in your life. And you only get certain windows in time. So if you have opportunities to take advantage of something that may not seem to others like it's the best direction or the most upward facing direction, fuck that, do what you're going to go do. Because whatever makes you happier in that moment.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We'll end with that.
Thank you, Daniel, and be well.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Follow Michelle on her Instagram at MeechRun13. In addition to publishing Content Magazine, SV Creates also provides tools and resources for artists and arts organizations. From time to time, we'll be checking in with Alyssa to find out what's going on. Hey, Alyssa, how you doing?
Hey, Daniel. I wanted to let you know about an upcoming 2-part webinar we have on leading others through change. It's May 21st and May 28th. We're doing it in partnership with Center for Excellence in Nonprofits. And you can find more information and links to register on our website at svcreates.org.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for listening to the Content Podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag and subscribe at content-magazine.com. This episode's music is Muddy Water by Sakura. Follow her on Instagram at Sakura Music.